Hello and welcome to our fourth video in this series on using ResearchGate to build an international profile. Today we're going to be talking about some of the potential challenges, and this follows on from our previous video which looked at the benefits and advantages. So in this video I'm going to introduce you to a selection of challenges that were raised by our 500 participants who were researchers in Japan, mostly Japanese, who had been using ResearchGate, some a lot and some not so much, but they reported some of the challenges that they face. So today in particular, I'm going to focus on two main challenges and a few other minor challenges that were raised by a small number of participants. But you can see the whole paper here on ResearchGate. So the biggest challenge, or the challenge that was most commonly raised by our participants, was that of copyright concerns. So this example quote from one of our participants says they're unsure about whether they can upload their publication or not. This is not a challenge that is unique to Japanese researchers. It's something that's raised commonly among researchers, early career researchers, and researchers who are new to this technology-based sharing. So I'm going to give a little bit of advice on that. So the first is that for any paper that you publish, you can always add the details to ResearchGate without any worry. So not the paper itself, but you can add, of course, the title, the journal it comes from, and the link, so other researchers can go and access it. Hopefully they have access. And also you can include an abstract. So this, without sharing the paper, gives some visibility to your research without necessarily having to share the research paper itself until you're sure about what the rules and regulations are. So in terms of open access, if your publication is open access or it's published in an open access journal, then you can upload a copy for others to see and to download. There shouldn't be any problems there. But if your paper is not open access, you do need to check the publisher guidelines. Publishers often get asked this question, editors often get asked this question. So if you go to a website and search ResearchGate or search sharing, you are very likely to find this information quite easily. If not, a quick email usually will give you a response. But what you will find from most publishers is that they will allow you to upload a preprint version of the paper. So if we go to the Elsevier website, that's one of the big international publishers, they allow researchers to upload a preprint anywhere at any time. So that would include ResearchGate. If you do that, it means that more researchers can access your work, even if they don't have access to the very expensive international literature databases. What you would do is to create the preprint copy and maybe have a footer or a header on every page saying this is a preprint, the full version is available at, and have a link so people could access the original published, polished version if they do have access. So another thing that we can do is to upload a private copy of our work to our ResearchGate profile. So that's what I've done here. This paper is not open access, so I have a private full text that is available for me and my co-authors, but no one else can see that. It means that I have all of my papers in one space, which is always nice for organization. It can get a little confusing where everything is. But also it allows you to easily share research with individual researchers. So researchers might see this paper, they can press a button that requests a copy from me, and I can send that in a private message to individual researchers for their own research use. It's similar to what we might have done traditionally at an academic conference, and we'd have copies of our papers and we'd give them to individual researchers. So in terms of copyright, I think that there is some gray area, but this is something that I think is really important part of academia, which is a very inequitable space. There are many researchers, particularly in the global south, who don't have easy access to research. The international databases are very expensive, and so to level the playing field, I think sharing knowledge, that's our job. I think that's something that should be promoted, and through that private exchange of papers is something that is encouraged by ResearchGate. Because ResearchGate in particular, but academic social networks more broadly, are becoming so integral for research sharing around the world, there are a number of initiatives underway, some programs between publishers and ResearchGate to overcome some of these copyright challenges. So some examples are here. Wiley and Springer are both examples that are moving towards more sharing of research through ResearchGate, so that some of these copyright issues may be a little more easy to navigate in the coming years. But to sum up the copyright concerns, they are a common worry for many researchers, not just in Japan. It does take a little bit of homework, probably looking at publisher guidelines in English, and so it might take some time, but it may be worth it to share your research with a wide audience. So our second major challenge was researchers who told us they were unsure of how to use ResearchGate, how to use it effectively and not be a waste of time. So this is kind of a big challenge, and really the next set of videos are going to really respond to this challenge. So I'm not going to talk about it here because it needs a lot of time. So in the next video, we'll talk about how to set up your profile, and then the final 3 videos are about how to use ResearchGate effectively in 3 different ways. So to share research, to connect with other researchers and build networks, and to know and access new and other research from researchers around the world. So this challenge is a big one, and we will divert it to the next video. So I hope you can join us there. But on to a few of the minor challenges. I call them minor because just a small number of participants raised them, but they're challenges nonetheless. The third challenge is about frequent unwanted emails. So again, a very small number of participants, less than 15 out of 500, raised this, but it's something that it's really easy to fix, so I thought I would mention it here. So if you join ResearchGate, you have to do this through an institutional email address. And you might receive notifications from ResearchGate. You might get requests for confirmation. Is this your paper? It might suggest research that might be of interest to you. So this quote here, the service frequently asked me to upload, and it was somewhat annoying. Now, this might particularly be the case for researchers with common family names. So, for example, one of our participants whose surname was Tanaka, of course it's very common in Japan, so they were getting a lot of requests, is this your paper, is this your paper, and often it's not. So what we can do is control the emails and notifications that we receive. So if you go to settings, and then if you go to emails, you'll see a big list, and you will check the different types of emails that you would like to receive. And you can see this is my profile settings. I receive no emails, so I've never received an email from ResearchGate since I removed the settings here. So quite an easy fix. So next I have two minor challenges that are related. The first is the slow or no responses to requests. So we might request a paper, we see it on ResearchGate, we can't access it elsewhere, we request it from the researcher, we hope to receive a copy, but it takes a long time, or you don't get a response. So of course, if that researcher no longer uses ResearchGate, or they don't get notifications through their email and they check irregularly, then it might take some time. Or you might get a non-favorable outcome. It may also be the case that you get a lot of requests, contact from researchers that is unwanted or unnecessary. So for example, it's quite common for me to receive requests for papers that are freely available online, but it's so easy to press that button and make a request. It really is just, for me, a button to respond, to say, yes, here it is, I hope you enjoy it, please give feedback if you want. But for some that might be quite tedious. So again, it's both of these challenges don't really have a solution. They are just weaknesses or disadvantages of the tool when we network our expectations and the actions of others sometimes don't meet. So that is just something that you need to consider when you think about whether ResearchGate is okay for you. Although I will add that I have heard stories where researchers, and particularly early career researchers, will request a paper from a veteran, an experienced researcher, not necessarily because they want the paper, but because they want to start, initiate some communication. So this might also be a reason why people are getting in touch with you, and that obviously can be a very positive thing. So our next challenge is about uploading papers in Japanese. So I think there are two difficulties here. One is the technical. So you can upload papers in any language. The computer doesn't know what language a PDF is in. You can add the information, the title, the abstract in any language. Again, the computer doesn't doesn't distinguish between languages. But when you select a journal or a conference, for example, it probably won't automatically appear as many of the English language journals or conferences do. So it would need to be manually input. So there are some technical difficulties, but also I think there is a kind of psychological barrier. So this quote here, it's difficult to upload papers in Japanese because there are few people who read them. So yes, ResearchGate and many of the international academic social networks are completely in English, so it might feel like you should be communicating in English, but there are many non-English papers uploaded to ResearchGate, and the more people that upload in other languages will encourage others. So I would suggest that not to worry about that. Is certainly something that is done and should be done more. Another thing you might like to consider is to adding the details of your project or your research paper in English and Japanese, and so that bilingual focus could reach wider audiences. Maybe they can't read your Japanese paper, but they can see your abstract in English, and maybe they can get some even general idea about your research activities. So I think this could be a positive thing to disrupt a little the English dominance of academia. And finally, one of the challenges raised was a concern about researchers' English level. They're worried about how to make requests in English. Fortunately, there are some automated functions in ResearchGate. So when you make a request for a paper, you just select the request and you push the button and it's done for you. If you receive an email, the requested paper, then there is some automated thank you note. So you can select the thank you note that suits you and send that. So it's done automatically. I think the reality is that most researchers around the world are not native speakers, and they are using English as a lingua franca. And so I think it's really important to reach out, even if it's not perfect in English. If you consider how you would feel if a researcher contacted you in Japanese, it's not really good Japanese, maybe they used a Google Translate tool, but they reached out to you in your language, I don't think that you would think less of them for not having perfect grammar or vocabulary, but that you'd probably be quite happy to receive such an email. And I think international collaboration, which is one of my other research interests, is not as common in Japan as other countries around the world. And this hesitation is one of the reasons, I believe. So I think just getting some courage and trying, I think is a really important step. And I think you'll find that the outcomes will only be positive. So a quick recap of this video. We've covered a number of challenges. Some of them can be overcome, either easily or with some work. There are other weaknesses of the platform that we can't change, or at least, for now. I think what we need to do is to weigh up these demerits against the potential benefits that I talked about in the previous video to decide whether or not ResearchGate is the right tool for you. So if you think that it is, I'd like you to jump over to our next video, which will take you step by step through the process of opening a ResearchGate profile and starting your journey of sharing in the international academic social network community. Hope to see you there.